In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And so it began, the miraculous truth revealed, what God had hidden before Adam in Genesis' divine plan. In that unfathomable time, when the tapestry of existence hung in a delicate balance, God breathed life into man, crafting Adam from the very dust of the earth. Awakening amidst the tranquility of the Garden of Eden, Adam inhaled his first breath, a testament to the divine spirit filling his being. As the sun rose, bathing the landscape in hues of gold and emerald, vibrant flora sprang to life, accompanied by songs of birds fluttering joyously through the branches. Yet within this resplendent paradise, Adam felt the weight of solitude pressing upon his heart. As he wandered the meandering paths of the garden, shepherding forth the life God had entrusted to him, a longing grew deeper within him. "It is not good for man to be alone," echoed in his mind, causing him to ponder the profound purpose behind his Creator's observation. He nurtured the blossoms and tended to the fruits, yet evenings brought with them a haunting echo, a desire for kinship. The Lord, attuned to Adam's thoughts and feelings, brought forth the creatures of the field, each beautifully crafted by his hand. "Name them," he commanded, watching as Adam bestowed titles upon each being. "Lion," he declared, for the regal animal. "Dove," for the gentle creature alighting nearby. As families of animals frolicked, each pair rejoiced together, the solitude within Adam intensified. "Why do I remain alone?" his heart whispered, resonating through the serene stillness as God's watchful presence enveloped him with love. In his infinite wisdom, the Creator knew that the time had not yet come for the perfect companion to be revealed. Adam's longing was a sacred concoction of anticipation that God allowed to brew, heightening his yearning. Suddenly, an extraordinary revelation unfurled. God decided to share in the mystery of companionship. Adam, resting in a peaceful slumber, unknowingly surrendered his rib, an act that would reshape the very fabric of his existence. When Adam opened his eyes, there she stood, a being of extraordinary beauty, crafted uniquely from his own flesh and bone. Adam's heart surged with joy. "At last, this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," he proclaimed, filled with wonder at the divine artistry of her creation. Together, they stood amidst the garden's vibrant glory, embodying purity and expressing the divine covenant of partnership. A whisper of marriage nestled within their hearts. Yet unbeknownst to them, the forbidden tree cast its shadow at the garden's edge. The command of God lingered in Adam's mind, yet curiosity began to weave its way into their perfect existence. As Eve gazed upon the alluring tree, a serpentine whisper slithered through the air, urging them to consider the sweet promise it held. "Surely you will not die," it hissed, seeming to offer enlightenment. Yet the seeds of doubt already found soil in the sacred covenant. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As curiosity fluttered in the hearts of the first man and woman, a choice loomed before them, reflecting the weight of their divine purpose. Would they embrace the path set by their Creator, or would they yield to the alluring whispers of deception? The sacred journey of companionship and creation was far from over, and its next chapter awaited with bated breath within divine grace. And as Eve beheld the tree, its fruit glistening like jewels in the light of the sun, a tempest stirred within her soul. The serpent's voice, smooth and beguiling, wrapped around her thoughts. "You shall not surely die," he reiterated, casting doubt upon the certainty of God's word. "For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Eve lingered in contemplation as allure and fear intertwined. The fruit hung heavy with the promise of wisdom, and her heart beat with the desire for enlightenment. "Should I not seek to know the very things God knows?" she pondered, her fingers brushing against the skin of the forbidden fruit. In that moment she could feel the weight of a decision, like the tension of strings drawn taut on a harp, silently revealing the music of rebellion. Adam, never far from her side, sensed the shift in the atmosphere, but he remained silent, watching with an intensity that reflected the profound trust he had in the Creator's guidance. Despite the beauty of their connection, a shadow began to deepen between them. Where they once shared understanding, Eve looked toward Adam, her companion, her heart caught in a whirlwind of expectation and doubt. "What if this is the path to greater life?" she thought. And with that whisper of hope, she plucked the fruit from its branch, its weight heavy and foreboding in her palm. In the stillness of the garden, as the sun began its descent, Eve brought the fruit to her lips, biting into its flesh. A burst of sweetness flooded her senses, mingling with a bitterness that slipped through her heart like a thief in the night. Suddenly, her eyes opened wide, not to the light of wisdom, but to a new awareness, a gnawing realization of vulnerability. Her gaze turned toward Adam, and in that instant she offered him the fruit, saying, "Taste and see." But as Adam stood before her, the beauty of their unity was eclipsed by the command of the divine still echoing in his heart. Yet curiosity, mingled with desire and the longing for belonging, overwhelmed him. He reached out, and the fruit rested in his hand. The scriptures reveal this tragic turning point. "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her. And he did eat." As the last word of their obedience faded, the very fabric of creation quivered, as if the heavens themselves held their breath. Light shifted into shadow, and a rift formed within their hearts, where once there was union. In that naked truth, they discovered shame for the first time, covering themselves in fig leaves, a futile attempt to shield their vulnerability from the eyes of their Creator. Thus, the voice of God approached them, echoing through the tapestry of Eden, "Where art thou?" The divine inquiry sent waves of fear coursing through Adam and Eve, for they knew without doubt that the sweetness promised had borne a bitter fruit. Unraveling their story would not merely reveal their fall, but also unravel the greater narrative woven by God's sovereign hand. For in their weakness his strength would manifest, and in their turning away, a pathway for redemption was being prepared, hidden in the promise still to come. The stage was set for the unfolding of divine prophecy, beckoning forth a hope greater than their fleeting desires. For what they did not know was that within the shadow of their transgression lay the seeds of a Saviour, destined to reconcile not only their hearts, but the hearts of all mankind. Thus the two became the first to stumble upon the fragile nature of choice, a mystery that would echo throughout the ages, drawing the faithful to gaze upon the unfathomable depths of God's love and purpose. And Adam and Eve, trembling before the voice that filled Eden, felt the weight of their disobedience crushing their spirits. Hiding among the foliage, they cast fearful glances at one another, for the sweetness of the fruit that had promised insight now smouldered with guilt. Yet they could not escape the still probing question as it reverberated through the trees, proclaiming their shame. "Did you eat from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat?" The Lord God spoke with a clarity that pierced their souls. Adam, trembling, felt the heaviness of words caught upon his tongue. "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat." His voice trembled as he sought to divert blame, failing to grasp the weight of his own transgression. The Lord turned to Eve. "What is this you have done?" She stammered beneath the gaze of her Creator. "The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat." Thus their defenses uttered forth in a dance of blame, obscuring the truth nestled deep within their hearts. In that moment the heavens wept, and the ground shuddered beneath them. The Almighty's sorrow was palpable as he spoke forth judgment, revealing the consequences of their actions. To the serpent he declared, "Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life." Yet as the words of judgment fell, within them carried a whisper of grace. "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." A promise of redemption hidden within the pronouncement of death, suggesting that even in their moment of downfall, the Lord's plan for salvation was already stirring. Turning then to Eve, the Lord spoke, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." In her grief, the promise of new life was intertwined with sorrow, a duality that would echo through generations. To Adam he said, "Because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, 'You shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life.'" The once flourishing paradise would now be marred by labor, and the harmony of creation fractured. Adam and Eve stood on the brink of despair, yet amid their sorrow the breath of hope began to weave through the fabric of their narrative. The penalty of sin was clear, yet in the midst of their fall a glimpse of redemption shone through, illuminating that a pathway to restoration awaited. As they were cast from the garden, a flaming sword turned every way to guard the entrance of Eden, keeping hidden the tree of life. The weight of separation bore heavily on their hearts. Still, they departed carrying the unspoken promise of a future that would crush the serpent and restore all that was lost. Their hearts, now awakened to both despair and hope, began to look beyond the horizon, yearning for the fulfillment of the divine plan. What they did not understand was that even in their greatest folly, an eternal promise began to unfurl, a promise that beckoned the faithful to seek the one who would come to free not only them, but all creation. For in the depths of their failure lay the seeds of grace, as God quietly orchestrated a beautiful tapestry of redemption that would echo throughout the ages. As Adam and Eve walked away from the garden, the weight of their decision pressed heavily upon them. Each step was shrouded in uncertainty. The lush garden, filled with fragrant blossoms and the melodious sounds of creatures, faded into the distance. The cool breeze that once brought peace now felt like a relentless reminder of their lost innocence. In the days that followed, Adam tilled the ground, his hands calloused and his back bent. The soil that had once yielded its fruit with ease now resisted his toil. "By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread," echoed in his ears, Genesis 3:19. Yet each fruit of labor bore a reminder not only of his curse, but also of the promise whispered amid judgment. Meanwhile, Eve bore the weight of her new reality. With every cry of her coming child, the pangs of pain wrapped around her heart like vine thorns. She remembered the Lord's words, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow," Genesis 3:16. Yet within this pain of childbirth, a flicker of hope stirred, for she understood that through her lineage the Redeemer must come. She carried both sorrow and the potential for life. Days turned to weeks, and from Eve's womb sprung forth a life, Cain, her firstborn. As she held him, The warmth of his tiny being against her chest instilled a fleeting sense of joy amid the bitter remnants of loss. "I have gotten a man from the Lord," she proclaimed with a mix of wonder and trepidation, Genesis 4:1. Yet, even in her joy, the shadow of the serpent loomed, whispering doubts about this new life. Then she bore Abel, a shepherd, the keeper of sheep, and with each sacrifice he offered to the Lord, deep within their hearts was a yearning for restoration. Adam and Eve looked upon their sons, feeling the sting of their actions echoed through the generations. Would their children realize the promise that was whispered through judgment? Would they rise to fulfill the prophecy spoken to the serpent? But as their heartbeats rose, so did conflict. Cain walked down a path shadowed by jealousy, his heart corrupted by dissatisfaction. "Am I my brother's keeper?" he would ask. Yet the question itself reflected the fracture that sin had wrought in their family. Genesis 4:9. The weight of betrayal and wrath filled the air, escalating to a violent act that echoed the serpent's deception. The ground soaked up the blood of Abel, and in that act of violence, the world of Adam and Eve darkened further. The Lord's voice pierced the silence once more, questioning Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" Genesis 4:9. In that moment, as the curse fell upon Cain, the promise of restoration through Eve's seed trembled on the horizon, as if all creation held its breath, awaiting the one who would come to bring healing to the brokenness. As Adam and Eve mourned the loss of their son, the weight of their actions bore down anew. Yet even then, hope began to emerge in the strange unfolding of events. Amidst their grief, they were gifted another son, Seth, through whom they would continue. The promise lingered still, concealed but not forgotten. What lay ahead was still unseen, veiled in divine mystery. Would the lineage of Eve play a significant role in the grand narrative of salvation, one that would orchestrate the ultimate victory over the serpent? The seeds of faith were being sown in the soil of their lineage, and within the unfolding generations, God's sovereign plan was already in motion, leading to the dawn of redemption yet to come. In the years that followed, Adam and Eve navigated the shadows of their new reality. The fields bore their flinted fruit, yet every harvest was tinged with a bittersweet reminder of their tragic choices. In the quiet of their dwelling, by the flickering flames of the hearth, they told their children stories of the garden, of the whispered promise, and of the hope yet to come. Seth grew in stature and wisdom, embodying both the spirit of his father and the resilience of his mother. The name Eve chose, Seth, meaning appointed, echoed in their hearts as a beacon of hope, as though his very existence was a testament to the divine promise that life would continue and redemption would emerge from the ashes of despair. Genesis 4:25. As the years drifted like leaves in the autumn wind, Seth took a wife, and children were born to him. Enosh was among the first. In that generation, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. Genesis 4:26, igniting a flicker of faith amidst the desolation. The fabric of their lineage began to weave the threads of worship and remembrance anew, binding the community in a fragile hope for restoration. Yet amid this burgeoning faith, darkness loomed. The heart of humanity teetered on the precipice of its own rebellion. As the families multiplied, so did the depths of estrangement from the Creator. Sin grew with unchecked vigor, gnawing at the foundations of the sacred bond that once existed. Each act of rebellion echoed the serpent's deceit, pulling them further into despair. One fateful day, Cain's descendants, wandering away from the light, began to boast of their strength and prowess, declaring dominion over their paths. In the midst of their exultation, Lamech, a descendant of Cain, spoke words of violence. "I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me." Genesis 4:23. His heart was hardened, a mirror of Cain's own transgressions, as he steeped himself in a mantle of vengeance. In that moment, The weight of Adam and Eve's fallen world trembled once again at the impulses of sin. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve, with aching hearts, watched their sons and daughters navigate the tumultuous waters of life's choices. They would plead in silent prayer before the God who once walked among them, longing for the fulfillment of the promise given in the shadow of the garden. The weight of their choice echoed through generations, a chilling reminder of the altars of sacrifice built by Abel, the brother who sought to please the Lord. But then came the moment when the heavens stirred, and the heart of God reflected upon creation. It was not merely the sorrow of man that reached his ears, but also a longing to restore what had been broken. The Lord's heart yearned to be reconciled with the family of Adam and Eve, and he began to unfold his divine plan, layering his intentions within the threads of human history. Though the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth, Genesis 8:21, the Lord sought not only to judge, but also to redeem, infusing hope into the coming generations. He would set his eyes on the righteous path that would lead ultimately to a day when restoration would crown his creation, when the serpent would face its fate and the promise would find its fulfillment. The lineage of Seth was now speckled with the promise of revival, with generations moving ever closer to a glorious revelation. What the hearts of Adam and Eve had yearned for, the promise yet unfulfilled, began to blossom amidst their descendants. Yet, even as they watched, a deeper mystery lingered on the horizon. The earth was still gripped by the serpent's curse, and the whispers of the promise felt distant. But within this tapestry of hope and despair, hints of the greater narrative unfurled. A revelation awaited, one that would encapsulate the divine purpose cultivated in the shadows of Eden. What would unfold would eclipse even the darkest of times, leading to the dawning of a promise sealed in blood and hope. God's sovereign plan, intricately woven through generations, was orchestrating a crescendo of grace that the world could scarcely perceive, but it would come forth, unrelenting and unstoppable, in the fullness of time. As the years flowed like a gentle river, the lineage of Seth expanded, weaving together a tapestry of lives that sought to remember and honor the Creator. Among Seth's descendants, Enosh grew, and in his days the vibrancy of worship returned amidst the shadows of sin. The people, drawn by the stirring of their spirits, gathered to call upon the name of the Lord with fervent hearts, proclaiming his greatness and splendor. Genesis 4:26. Yet with the rise of faith came the swelling tide of rebellion. The darkness that had once crept silently through the human heart now danced openly among the descendants of Cain. They wandered far from the path of righteousness, entangled in their ambitions and desires. Violence and strife echoed in familial disputes, and their hearts became enshrined in defiance against the very one who breathed life into their beings. In the midst of this turmoil, waves of despair crashed against the hopes of Adam and Eve. They watched as the world transformed, each generation bearing the marks of sin carved into their hearts. Their prayers rose like smoke to the heavens, a plea for deliverance, for restoration, to the days of tranquility in the garden. Then it came to pass that a great sorrow fell upon the land. Strife erupted among the clans, and blood was shed in the name of pride and vengeance. The tales of the past, of Adam's and Eve's home, of a serpent's deceit, reached the ears of a young man named Methuselah. He felt the weight of the legacy passed down and sought to walk in faith, though the world around him spiraled further into an abyss of iniquity. One evening, as dusk fell upon the earth, Methuselah ascended a solitary hill. Alone in his quiet contemplation, he yearned for the presence of the Lord. As he knelt in prayer, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it an air of divine expectancy. Methuselah, with his heart open to the heavens, began to receive visions of what was yet to come. He saw a great flood, which would purge the earth of its corruption. He gazed upon the faces of the faithful, urging them to heed the call of the one who remained steadfast. In his vision, a vessel took form, built to sustain the remnant of creation, a promise of preservation amid impending judgment. Genesis 6:14-16. The vision deeply unsettled him, yet in his spirit stirred the reminder of God's character, he who called forth life from dust, who bestowed grace upon the undeserving. Methuselah, unshaken in his resolve, returned to his kin and urged them to seek the Lord, to turn back from wickedness and listen to the echoes of warning ringing through the ages. But trepidation hung in the air as the scoffers arose. They mocked the hope he spoke of, wrapped in their disbelief, craving the fleeting joys that the world had to offer. Yet Methuselah persevered, his heart aflame with the divine urgency. He proclaimed, "He who seeks the Lord shall find him. Though we wander, his mercy calls us back." Even amid impending chaos, God's sovereign plan was woven into the fabric of time, reaching forth from the shadows of Eden. The prophetic whispers grew louder, an invitation for the weary to be restored, for the broken to be made whole. A revelation was drawing near, illuminating the path to redemption, and in that unwavering promise, a future was being birthed. Methuselah would not waver. He would await the fulfillment of that vision, the magnificent truth that would echo throughout eternity. For the days of reckoning were at hand, and amidst the conflict, a glimmering glimpse of hope where the darkness could not prevail, awaited all who would seek the face of God. In those days of turmoil and division, the hearts of the descendants of Adam swirled in restlessness, forsaking the paths of their fathers. Yet, amidst the clouds of despair, there remained a small spark of faith within Methuselah's family. He gathered his children and kin, drawing them close beneath the starlit sky, and as the moon bathed the earth in silver light, he spoke to them of the visions that had stirred his spirit. "Listen, my beloved, for the Lord has shown me a great and terrible thing. A flood is coming upon the earth to cleanse it of its wickedness. But take heart, for there is a way through the storm." His voice rang with both urgency and hope, a beacon of light against the encompassing darkness. "The vessel of salvation shall be built, and those who heed the word of the Lord will be saved." His sons, Lamech and Noah, listened with furrowed brows. "Father," Lamech questioned, "how can we find deliverance when sin reigns so triumphantly? The cries of the wicked drown the voice of the righteous." "Have faith," Methuselah replied, his eyes blazing with fervor. "For our God is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. It is written, He desires none to perish, but all to come to repentance." 2 Peter 3:9. We must prepare our hearts and our hands. The time of reckoning approaches like a thief in the night. And so, with a divine purpose rekindled amongst them, Methuselah and his family set to work. Under their father's guidance, they began to gather the materials that would be needed for the vessel, felling trees from the forest and gathering the precious pitch. All the while the mocking laughter of the scoffers echoed from the valleys below. "How foolish they must think us," muttered Noah as he labored alongside his father, "to believe in a promise when the sun shines bright and the earth remains fruitful." Methuselah placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, encouragement lighting his face. "We are blessed to be stewards of the truth. They may not see what we see, but our faith is our assurance in what is unseen." Hebrews 11:1. The Lord's hand is upon us, even in our trials. As days turned to years, the wickedness of man grew ever more abundant. Flesh turned to lust. The thoughts of their hearts became only evil continually. Genesis 6:5. Yet Methuselah, with a heart full of burden, implored all who would listen to turn away from their transgressions and seek the face of their Creator. On one somber evening, as he descended the hill where he had first heard the whispers of the Lord, he was overtaken by an overwhelming sense of grief. He fell to his knees, crying out to God, "Have mercy, O Lord, raise up a remnant from this despair. Let not the judgments fall without hope of restoration. He rose, spirit-filled and resolute. Even amid the mire of disbelief, he felt the stirring of something grand impending, a gathering storm, not just of rain, but of divine redemption, a revelation cloaked in the promise of his salvation. As the winds began to shift and the heavens prepared to open above, Methuselah stood with unwavering faith, a sentinel of hope in a world turned away from the promise of renewal. And it came to pass that even as the world turned dark, the divine plan was unfolding. What lay ahead was shrouded in mystery, a secret long held within the heart of God. For though the scales of judgment were poised to tip, the ark of hope would soon cradle a covenant of grace. Little did they know, what began with a flood would reveal a resurrection of life beyond imagination. A deeper truth was to be unveiled, shimmering just beyond the horizon, promising that even in deluge, the heart of the Almighty would draw all men to himself. Methuselah could hardly contain the anticipation, for the next chapter of humanity was poised to be written, and the world was about to witness the unfathomable depths of God's sovereign mercy. As time flowed like the relentless rivers, the labor of Methuselah and his sons continued to rise against the backdrop of an increasingly corrupt world. The days of toil transformed into seasons, each one thick with despair, as they witnessed the hearts of men grow calloused and hardened towards the warnings of a coming storm. Yet in the quiet hours of the night, as their hammer struck wood and pitch took form, Methuselah gathered his family before the flickering light of their fire. "Let us recount the mercies of the Lord, for he remembers his covenant," he encouraged them. "Just as he breathed life into Adam, so shall he breathe life anew into those who seek him." Lamech, weary from the toil, looked up at his father. "But what of those who mock us, who turn a deaf ear to your words? Do we not bring upon ourselves ridicule by believing in what lies ahead?" Methuselah sighed, pressing a hand to his young son's shoulder. "Understand, my son, that mocking is born of fear. The flesh fears what it cannot control. But we, who stand on the promises of God, must be steadfast. For just as he spoke to Noah, so he speaks still today. It is written, 'The righteous shall live by faith.'" Habakkuk 2:4. We are to be heralds of truth, even unto the darkest of hearts. And so, while they worked, the very essence of faith was woven into the fabric of their actions. Each tree felled was a testament to their hope, each plank crafted a declaration of their belief in his promise. Yet the desolation outside their little circle festered. The laughter from the scoffers became a cacophony that wrapped around them like a thick mist. "Look at them!" one jeered. "Do they truly think they can build a new world in this age of wickedness?" Though the shadows of doubt crept, the resolve of Methuselah and his family intensified, for they knew that righteousness was seldom celebrated in a fallen world. As urgent was their work, even greater was Methuselah's heart cry to the Lord. One fateful night, as exhaustion seeped into their bones, Methuselah found himself alone in a quiet glade, beseeching the heavens. "O God, hear my supplication. Your people languish, and the earth groans under the weight of sin. Will you not act on behalf of those who seek your face?" And the winds rustled softly as if answering his plea, carrying the whispers of promise. Yet even as the stricken hearts of men grew colder, a whisper rippled through creation, a divine disturbance that stirred the waters of the human spirit. Methuselah stood in the stillness, his heart quickening at the thought of the revelation yet to be unveiled. For the flood was not merely a destruction, it was a purification from which new life would spring forth. As the heavens darkened and the earth began to tremble, in the distance he beheld a figure emerging from the haze, a figure cloaked in glory, embodying righteous judgment, yet suffused with grace. "Ready yourself, Methuselah," the figure spoke, with a voice like thunder, yet gentle as a lullaby. "For the time is nearing when the old will make way for the new. From destruction shall arise a creation restored. And so, with each passing moment, the anticipation of something celestial descended upon the land. Methuselah, with eyes ablaze with revelation, returned to his family, sharing the urgency of the moment. Prepare your hearts, beloved. What is about to unfold is both a reckoning and a rebirth, for God's sovereign plan has not left us in the darkness. In that sacred space, a new understanding permeated the air, reverberating the truth, a truth hidden from ages past, waiting for the appointed time to be revealed. Just as mankind faced a deluge, an unfathomable splendor awaited the faithful. Will we remain vigilant, even as the world denies? For soon the flood may take many forms, but the promise of life everlasting remains. Thus they worked with renewed fervor, as waves of divine purpose rolled toward them, creating anticipation that sparked the soul. For God's timeline was stretching, and beyond the horizon the promise of a new covenant awaited, one that would illuminate the path for generations yet to come. As the dawn broke over the horizon, creeping rays of light pierced through the overcast skies, casting a solemn glow upon the laborers. The noise of the mocking voices grew fainter as Methuselah gathered his family once more. "Let us not be swayed by the ridicules of the unfaithful," he intoned with urgency, "for the Lord has promised that his mercy endures forever, and it is our task to hold fast to that hope." And they toiled, Noah, the father, and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, working diligently on the mighty vessel that would soon bear witness to God's greatness. Each stroke of their tools echoed in the void of the impending judgment. The shape of the ark began to rise, a testament of faith in a world marred by transgression. "What will happen when the flood begins?" Japheth asked, eyes wide with wonder and fear. Methuselah knelt beside him, a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "The waters shall rise, my son, but we shall be preserved under the shadow of his wings." Psalm 91:1. For we have responded to the call of our God. As work progressed, so too did the echoes of discord. The scoffers returned, their laughter now mocking the very name of the Lord. "They say the God of Noah will judge us," a voice carried on the wind. "But we will be as we have always been, free of his chains." The words lingered in the air, festering and heavy, like storm clouds gathering for the deluge. Yet amidst their doubts and the jeers, Methuselah continued to lead them in prayers, beseeching the Lord for strength to endure the trials that lay ahead. "Father of lights, grant us courage, for you alone are our refuge in the gathering waters," he cried in fervent prayer during the long evenings. One starry night, as the cool winds whispered through the trees, Methuselah retreated once again to the glade, where he had encountered the glorious figure. His heart was stirred with fervent expectation. "Lord, reveal to me your perfect plan. What awaits after this storm?" And in that sacred moment, a deep peace settled within him. The Creator spoke, not in thunder, but through a gentle breeze that seemed to carry the weight of ages. "Methuselah, understand that every raindrop shall fall as a cleansing grace. For I am making a covenant of renewal. From you shall emerge a new earth, one where righteousness will dwell, and my people shall know me as I know them." Methuselah trembled, for he understood then that the flood was not an end, but a beginning, an opportunity for a profound revelation of God's love and faithfulness. He returned to his family, the weight of the promise resonating in his spirit. "Beloved, heed the words spoken in the night, for our obedience shall unveil God's purpose. Beyond the waters, a new creation waits." Revelation 21:1. The covenant will bring forth a remnant through whom the earth shall be blessed. The time draws near. Be prepared, for God's mercy shall triumph over judgment. The fire crackled, illuminating the faces of those he loved, as they gathered close, hearts unified in shared faith. With renewed fervor, they returned to their labors, aware that their actions were woven into the rich tapestry of divine providence. Yet, even as they worked, a shadow loomed over the world. The hearts of men grew dreadfully violent, and whispers of dark conspiracy lauded disobedience as virtuous. Even so, Methuselah's resolve and the hope of his family forged an unbreakable chain. As we build this ark, we build a doorway to salvation, a vessel of grace amidst a world intent on destruction, he reminded them. As the skies darkened and the first heavy drops of rain began to fall, all awaited the unfolding of God's plan. For unseen, a new promise was yet to be revealed, a truth that would pave the way for a covenant unlike any before. For even in the darkest of days, God's light would shine through his chosen, revealing that beyond judgment lies unbelievable mercy and boundless grace. Would they embrace the unfolding destiny birthed from a chaotic flood? The answer awaited upon the threshold of divine revelation. In the days that followed, the heavens broke open, unleashing torrents of rain upon the earth. The sound of rushing waters drowned out every voice that had once scoffed, every heart that had turned away from the truth of God. The floodgates of creation were torn asunder, and the world that had turned its back upon the Lord was submerged beneath the cleansing deluge. Yet within the hollow of the ark, a sanctuary formed from faith, Methuselah, Noah, and his beloved family found refuge. The powerful water surged around them, an audible testament to God's judgment, yet their hearts beat with an unwavering rhythm of hope. As the storm raged, they remained anchored by the promise of preservation and renewal, a clear reflection of God's mercy in the face of wrath. The rain that fell was not merely destruction, but divine cleansing, a precursor to restoration. "Remember, my family," Noah declared, his voice resolute as the ark swayed amidst the tumult. "We are not merely survivors of this deluge. We are vessels of salvation, and through us, God will bring forth new life." Hope ignited within their hearts, each soul daring to believe that beyond the flood lay a reinstated fellowship with their Creator. Days turned into weeks as the ark drifted upon the waters, broken only by the faint cries of the creatures that filled their space. The family shared stories of God's promises and the beauty of creation now resting beneath the waves. Each moment was steeped in gratitude, for they understood they were chosen to carry forth the legacy of life. Despite the chaos surrounding them, they became keepers of the covenant, guardians of a new dawn. And at last, the skies began to clear. The relentless storm subsided, ushering in a profound silence that blanketed the earth. As the rising sun cast a golden hue upon the merged horizon, the waters receded, revealing the promise of a transformed world. Noah sent forth a raven, which circled above, a harbinger of the unseen revelation yet to come. Yet his heart sank as the brash bird returned. It ventured into the depths, but found no haven. Then Noah sent forth a gentle dove, and as it left the ark, a moment of aching expectancy filled the air. As time flowed, it returned to him, the olive branch clutched delicately in its beak, an unmistakable sign that life had begun anew, that the earth awaited the footfalls of hope. The family rejoiced, for God's promise was made manifest. Their hearts soared as they understood the significance of the olive branch. It was a pledge of peace and new beginnings, a reminder that even from the depths of despair, God would breathe life into the void. When the door of the ark finally creaked open, Noah and his family stepped out, blinking into the sunlight, where the colors of the world seemed reborn and vibrant. "Go forth, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth," the Lord commanded, blessing them with the call of stewardship. Genesis 9:1. With renewed hearts and spirits ignited by purpose, they ventured into the land, once marred by sin, but now adorned with possibility. They carried with them the weight of their family's legacy and the knowledge that redemption was a cyclical promise, one woven into the fabric of existence through God's covenant. From that day forth, the rainbow arched across the sky, a magnificent symbol of hope, representing God's unwavering promise that never again would he destroy the earth by flood. Genesis 9:15. It stood as a reminder of grace pursued through every storm in life, and the enduring faithfulness of a God who seeks to restore rather than condemn. As the descendants of Noah flourished upon the renewed earth, a legacy of faith emerged, which thawed the harsh cold of separation that had begun with Adam's first disobedience. Methuselah, in retrospect, understood that all he had endured, the labor, the derision, the waiting, was for a purpose greater than himself. Each generation would echo the truths learned from the ark. Each heart would relay the sacred promise that redemption awaited beyond strife. And so, the story formed within Methuselah's family became a linchpin of faith for generations, inviting seekers, wanderers, and the lost to understand that when God speaks, the answer is always wrapped in hope. For ages untold, the message of the ark, the olive branch, and the vibrant colors of the rainbow would progressively weave into humanity's heart, revealing the depth of God's love for his creation. May we hold steadfast in our own storms, remembering the faith of Noah and the grace of the Lord. Know that each challenge faced carves the path for a greater promise, beckoning onward toward restoration and the unquenchable light of hope. Now, dear friends and fellow faithful, I urge you, be part of this journey of sharing God's miraculous stories. You must subscribe now and stay connected to his powerful word that transforms lives. Every like you leave helps spread the light of truth through the algorithm, touching hearts desperate for hope. Take a moment to comment below your reflections, for your insights can ignite faith in others. And don't hesitate, share this testimony with 5 friends who need to hear and trust in God's unwavering grace. Don't wait even one more second. Today is the moment of divine connection and shared legacy.